next up is our video on derivative rules. So if we read this carefully, it tells us that y equals x times sine of x, and it asks for dy dx, which is the derivative. So again, if I read that, it's x times sine of x. Because we are multiplying, that means we need to use the product rule because we have a function of x times another function of x. If I set up my u and my v, I get that u is equal to x and that v is equal to sine of x. The derivative of u would be 1. The derivative of v would be cosine of x. If I multiply backwards, I get sine of x times 1. That's just sine of x. Plus, if I multiply forwards, I get x times cosine of x cosine of x. And that is answer choice B, sine of x plus x cosine of x, product rule. This one says, what is the instantaneous rate of change? Remember that instantaneous rate of change is just another way of asking for the instantaneous slope, and the instantaneous slope is the slope of the tangent line, and the slope of the tangent line is the derivative. All of those things all mean the exact same thing. So the instantaneous rate of change at x equals 2. So we are looking for the derivative evaluated at x equals 2. If I look at this function, I have f of x equals x squared minus 2 over x minus 1, and we're dividing. That means we need to use the quotient rule. If I set up my u and my v, I get that u is equal to x squared minus 2. I get that v is equal to x minus 1. I get that u prime is equal to 2x, and that v prime is equal to 1. Now remember, if we were asked for the derivative in general, I would continue with the quotient rule, and I would go ahead and multiply backwards, multiply forwards, subtract them, divide it by the bottom squared, etc., etc., etc. But if they are asking me to evaluate at a specific value for x, I'm going to save myself some time and I'm going to plug it in now for all of these expressions so that when I multiply, I'm just multiplying numbers. That way I cut out having to make mistakes. So I'm going to save myself some time. I'm going to plug in x equals 2 now to all of these pieces so that I can just multiply numbers instead of multiplying expressions. So if I plug in 2, to u, I get 2 squared, which is 4, 4 minus 2, which is 2. If I plug in 2 to v, I get 2 minus 1, that's 1. If I plug in 2 to u prime, I get 2 times 2, that's 4. And then v prime is obviously still 1. So now, if I multiply backwards, I get 4 minus, because we're working with the quotient rule, if I multiply forwards, I get 2 times 1, which is 2. And remember, I want to divide it by the bottom squared. Excuse me, and the bottom is 1. So that would be divided by 1 squared. So if I simplify this, I get 4 minus 2, which is 2. And then 2 divided by 1, which is still 2. Answer choice D. All right, and that's the end of that one.